So when we talk about analyzing graphs, we are going to be looking at graphs and how parts of the graphs react and look according to its slope mainly. And so when we are looking at a graph that goes up, our slope is positive. And when we look at a positive slope, you can describe it based on the speed or the steepness of the slope. So if we said that this was one and this was another, we can say that this is rising or increasing quickly, and this is rising or increasing slowly. And it's all relative to the situation that is happening. If this is the only point in your graph that's rising, you may just note that it is a rising positive slope. But if you have a graph that is going slow and then fast, you might notice the difference between those two and note that in your analyzing. The opposite, of course, would be where your slope is negative, and that means that it is going down, it is decreasing. So if we decrease quickly, we might look something like that. Or if we are decreasing slowly. So it gives the impression that things are slowing down at a slow pace rather than at the quicker pace here. And again, it's mostly relative. If we have these two things individually, we may just say that the slope is going down, that we are losing money, we are losing speed, we are losing time. But if you have it right next to each other, you may say that things are happening rather slowly and then drop quickly or more fast or at an increased speed. And then the other thing that we have to look for when we're talking about analyzing graphs is if something happens to our graph, like we increase in speed and then we stay at a constant rate. So this is constant. And this just means that we got to a certain point in our graph and then we stayed at that certain point. So we can talk about constant as in miles over time. So we got up to a certain amount of speed and stayed at that certain amount of speed through our time driving, such as maybe getting to the highway and then driving on the highway. And so there are some different ways that we can express what is happening here. And of course, when we talk about analyzing graphs, we want to be able to come up with a situation that makes sense. Say you are leaving for work, you get to work, you stay at work for 8 hours, and then you go home, where this might be the time and this might be distance. Maybe away from home or to the office or wherever you need to go. So, and this would typically be like a time of period going, a time staying, and a time leaving. You can see that this is a longer time. So we can come up with a pretty detailed situation based on just that, the length of the graph and the slope and the change in what's happening. And so here we have a graph where this is the time and this is our miles. So over an amount of time, so many miles have happened. Maybe this is from a place or to work. And so we're going slowly gaining speed and then increasing speed quickly, where we've talked about how if we have one individual piece, we might not notice a major difference. But here we can see that this is much slower and this is faster, and they're both increasing. They're going up on this graph. Here we're having a constant where nothing is changing. You're going the same speed that you would have been going. And here we are going down slowly and then down much quicker. Slower and faster. similar to our increase, we are decreasing slowly and then decreasing quickly. So if you were talking about this as miles over time, you may say that you are just leaving your area or your neighborhood where the speed limit is 25, 35 miles per hour. You get onto a little bit more traffic areas where it's 45, 50. And you get onto the highway where you're going 60, and then you stay at 60 until you slowly get off and come to a stop at your destination. So this is just an example of seeing a graph and being able to make some sort of sense of what is happening with the graph.